It's my nerd world, and welcome to it. I am your host, Jon Justice, as I continue to give you my thoughts over Celebration taking place right now in Chicago. Like I said, I would be doing multiple podcasts this weekend. There's nothing new to really get into coming out of Celebration today. Tomorrow being Sunday, The Mandalorian, I'm really looking forward to getting some more info on. They will be doing the Jedi Fallen Order panel a little bit later on this morning, but I wanted to get another show out because there's a lot to get to now that I've had 24 hours to digest the Rise of Skywalker teaser trailer. I got a full list here. We're going to get to listener feedback on the show today, and I didn't do the drawing for an autographed copy of my science fiction novel, EMBARK. We will do that at the end of the show. Let's get right to it. I got lots to talk about.
We've passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now. But this is your fight. Be with you. No one's ever really gone.
Nothing will stand in our way.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
I will finish what you started.
Who are you? I'm no one. There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
The Force. It's calling to you. Just let it in.
I really feel like I was at a loss for words yesterday doing the show, and thank you to everybody who's responded so far. We have several emails and comments coming from YouTube in regards to Friday's show after the debut of the Rise of Skywalker teaser trailer at Celebration, and I've had a chance to really get into and digest a lot of different theories and looking at the trailer, and I did something that I don't normally do. And what I did was I actually made some really detailed notes. I spent some time this morning just putting my thoughts down on my MacBook Air notepad and really want to do my Nerd World version of a deep dive into this trailer and just some things that I noticed, some potential theories, a couple of rumors that are floating around out there that may or may not be true. That's why they're rumors, and just trying to piece together what we all saw in that 2 minutes worth of footage from the final Star Wars movie in this 9-story Skywalker saga. And I want to start off here. And this is something that just popped into my head this morning after I'd actually gone and done all my notes. And that is, this is 9 parts. And I mentioned this on the show yesterday, that the comments coming from J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy certainly were very specific as it relates to this is the end of these 9 movies, the culmination of these 9 films, to tie it all together. J.J. Abrams talking about how it needs to stand on its own, but he needs to bring the other elements of the other films into it, and certainly Palpatine is a way to go and do that. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to Palpatine. But what I wanted to say was, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, for me, I am perfectly fine if it fundamentally changes the context of previous films. And I'm really excited and hopeful they're going to do that. This is, at the end of the day, a 9-part saga. And I know this may be a given, and maybe you're listening going, well, yeah, John, duh. But I think there's a bit of a disconnect. At least in my opinion, there's a bit of a disconnect because this series has been going on for 40 years. And because Return of the Jedi was so definitive. And I think there is some rational logic to the individuals that say, well, the sequel trilogy, and I did talk about this a little bit yesterday, but I wanted to expand upon it. You know, the sequel trilogy really didn't have to happen. We have these new characters. It feels tacked on. Does it? I mean, for me, it doesn't. I get the extension. And you're going to have all three of these trilogies feel just different because of the time period of which they are made. But this final film could drastically change the way that we see the other movies, and I honestly kind of hope it does. I mean, think about the Harry Potter films. I guess use that as the example because it's the most connected, being that they were all made at one time. All those movies were made consecutively. We didn't have huge gaps in time for the Harry Potter trilogy, but all of those movies connect, and you don't get bothered if you get to the Deathly Hallows and it changes something beforehand. Now, it's a bad example from the standpoint of you have books to go and look at, right? Or the Game of Thrones series, or any television series for that matter. And I can't help but wonder how many people sort of view these as being separate trilogies, and if part of the reason why they decided to do the Palpatine reveal now was to get everybody used to it. To get everybody's mind wrapped around the idea that Palpatine was back and we're going to be shaking this trilogy up. I'm getting ahead of myself, and because I'm going to get into in specific detail what exactly I'm talking about, but I just wanted to kind of throw it out there that this is going to be the final film of these 9 movies, and they are being very specific about that, and Kathleen Kennedy said they're mapping out the next 10 years of Star Wars. You had Bob Iger saying that they're going to be taking a bit of a hiatus, so we may not get a movie next year like I thought that we would, but this is, at least for the time being, definitely going to be the end of the Skywalker saga as we know it. I think if they end up continuing down this storyline with an episode 10, it probably won't be for another decade. Because I think eventually they will. But as of right now, this is going to be the end of it. So it makes sense that, and it's okay, and it's justified in my mind, and I'm excited for it, that whatever happens in The Rise of Skywalker could fundamentally change the way that we go and look at Return of the Jedi. And that's really what I'm driving at. Is that at the end of Return of the Jedi, we all thought that Palpatine was dead. As it stands right now, that may not necessarily be true. And there's various ways where they can deal with Palpatine pulling the strings from the background, and we'll dive into that. But I kind of wanted to start off right there because that's where my head was at, because it really does feel like this film is not going to be any type of Return of the Jedi rehash, at least based off what we've seen. There may be some thematic elements and perhaps the way that the final act of the movie is laid out, and I still think that's what's going to end up happening, is it's going to be a 3-act, a 3-event sort of ending to this movie of a ground battle, a space battle, and some intimate battle with the ultimate evil, probably Palpatine and whoever it is that's fighting against him, Rey and whoever that is, whether Ben's with them or whatever. I am just so excited. I mean, I can't even express to you, and maybe through the show, I think some of you guys get it, you can hear it in my voice, but I just love Star Wars so much. And it is such a special thing that can evoke the type of emotion in me that 2-minute trailer did yesterday. And I don't know. I don't know if it means I should do a hat tip to Disney and Lucasfilm for starving us as long as they did. But the moment that trailer started, I was riveted. I was riveted in a way that I haven't been riveted since maybe seeing the first Force Awakens teaser. But even then, I don't know. It's a different type of excitement because now you've been through 2 stories. and ancillary stories with these individuals. You've gotten to know them, and we are reaching the end. I very well could have been just as giddy watching those other trailers, but contextually speaking, yesterday, sitting here, and my wife was still out of town. She's coming home today, thankfully, and the boys are at school, and I've been so looking forward to this, having no idea what to expect apart from the leaked promotional trailer, and that opening shot, Rey breathing, and another breathing at the start of a shot, and her standing on that desert landscape with that incoming altered TIE Fighter interceptor. I'm still, and then her just pole vaulting, saber vaulting over that thing. It's just incredible. Okay, I'm getting way ahead of myself. We gotta get into it.
There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
All right, so let's start here, and I'm basically just going to work through my list and give you my thoughts before we get into the listener feedback and I do the book drawing this week. But first off, Luke's words at the start of the trailer. We've passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now. So the first thing that comes to mind is, who is Luke talking to? Now, we know that there is a big possibility, because they have done this before, that what's being said in the trailer is not necessarily going to go and be in the movie. Especially when you go look at the teaser trailer by comparison for The Force Awakens. Not The Last Jedi, because that was in The Last Jedi, what Luke said. But in The Force Awakens one, and it's in the promo. I have it, you have it, you have that power too. They pulled that from somewhere else. That is absolutely new dialogue. So we can assume, and let's just for the sake of conversation, assume for a moment that that is from the movie. Who is he talking to? That's the big question. We've passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now. Is it Kylo? Is it Rey? Is it Luke with other Force ghosts explaining to Ben what has to happen now? There was the scene that was not in our teaser trailer, but the one that was shown for the investors at EigerCon about a month ago, where Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, is in the white ship room, could be the Tantive 4, or there's some speculation that it may not be the Tantive 4 and it may be the ship that was actually in Revenge of the Sith, because they were two different ships. But that he opens up the box and there's Vader's helmet. There's a possibility, right? We'll just speculate. What if the Force ghosts show up to Ben in that moment and they explain to him what has to happen? If they help turn him, maybe that's when, if Anakin shows up, a young Anakin shows up as a Force ghost. It makes more sense to me that Luke is talking to Ben. We've passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now. I mean, unless Rey has been getting training from the Force ghosts, which is possible. I tend to believe, and I'm of the opinion right now, that Luke's actually talking to Ben. Now, clearly, we don't know where this is going yet. So it's tough when you're speculating, because there's just a lot of connective tissue that we just don't have access to. But when we talk about the Rise of Skywalker, I am leaning towards, and I think a lot of people are, that they are talking about Ben Solo. I also think that there is a matter here of the Rise of Skywalker could have multiple meanings. And we'll get into that as well, because there's some old ideas that George Lucas didn't use for Return of the Jedi that could absolutely make an appearance in The Rise of Skywalker, especially when you consider, and I'll talk about this a little bit later on, J.J. Abrams at Celebration was very specific to say he actually did go and talk to George Lucas to get his advice on Palpatine. Okay, so moving forward, let's talk about that opening shot. First off, let's talk about that opening shot in regards to something that I mentioned I was going to get into on my reaction show, but I didn't, and that is The Last Jedi. I'm looking at some screenshots right now of the First Order interceptor, for lack of a better word. It's Kylo. Somebody made a comment. It does look. It has the exact same wings. That ship has the exact same wings as Kylo Ren's TIE Silencer. I'm looking at the toy right now. The cockpit, however, is a more traditional, doing that thing with my fingers, First Order cockpit, and the wings also now have white in them like the First Order. So this is either a completely updated version of Kylo Ren's TIE Silencer, or this is actually a Special Forces TIE interceptor. Now, I know that I'm getting a little bit specific on here, but I kind of want to open this up to all the options here. That particular ship does look like a TIE interceptor version of the First Order Special Forces black and red TIE when you go and look at it. Now, I know in the shot, it shows Kylo Ren's gloved hands moving those controls. Those controls look awesome, by the way. How in the world does that work? Those handles and the way that he was pushing it forward, and I'm assuming, right, those must be the flight control, sticks. That just looked crazy. Okay, this is what I wanted to point out, though. That shot looks like it came from The Last Jedi. And I just got done watching this trailer again, and it absolutely, you have Mendel, who is J.J. Abrams' cinematographer, who I believe is doing the cinematography for this film as well, which was different than Rian Johnson's cinematographer. And for those that have been listening to the show long enough, I've talked quite a bit about how the aesthetic of The Last Jedi is very different from The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens has a very J.J. Abrams crisp, clean look to it, minus his typical lens flare that usually shows up in his movies. He stripped that out. Probably looks closer to the original trilogy, but still all different. These shots, however, look like they almost have the same type of filter that was used on The Last Jedi, and it's actually apparent throughout a majority of the trailer, but especially this opening shot. Also, the whole standoff part of it, and I'll get into my thoughts of what I think is actually going on, could potentially be going on in the shot. However, that whole Rey standing there with the lightsaber, this vast desert landscape, the time of day and all of it, is really reminiscent of Crate. I'm super excited about this, by the way. This is not a complaint at all. I love the fact that there's some shots in this trailer that actually very much evoke the look of The Last Jedi. I'm super excited about that. I am so curious about what this whole shot is, though. It is so singularly unique and different and unexpected. It is arguably my favorite scene in any Star Wars trailer of all time. I am dying to know the context of what is happening in this shot of this First Order TIE interceptor hugging along this landscape, and Rey, lightsaber ignited, just vaulting over the top of it. This is just one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in a Star Wars film. All right, so let's get back into some details of it. Let's look at the evidence and what's on screen here. Clearly, Kylo's hands at the controls, even though you don't see his face. And it's similarly lit, right? Those controls, the way it doesn't look like he's flying in space. There's enough light coming into the cockpit that's showing on his hands that it looks like it's from the same scene. There's also a still shot that was shown during the panel of Kylo Ren standing on a desert planet without his mask on. Okay. There's a still shot of Kylo with the gloves on in the cockpit of what looks to be that ship. I'm actually looking at that particular. I'm going to bring it up right now because I'm going to close that one, and I'm going to bring up. Yes. So there was also a still shot of Kylo Ren looking like he's inside the cockpit, and it actually has the circular dome hatch above, holding the same controls, not wearing the mask. He's also not looking very happy, but then how many shots are there in The Force Awakens and in The Last Jedi where Kylo Ren looks happy? So again, we're kind of getting into just some, the evidence of what we've seen. For what it's worth, Jason over at Making Star Wars had made a comment that there's a scene in which Kylo Ren, and he sees something of Kylo Ren walking away from a crash. So that would certainly, lead you down a path that, okay, maybe this is some type of standoff. Doesn't necessarily explain why Kylo Ren wasn't firing on her. I don't think that Disney and Star Wars, I'm sorry, not Disney and Star Wars, Disney and Lucasfilm are intentionally going and not showing us anything. However, I think there is a possibility that if this is not a training scene, okay, if this is an actual high noon on Jakku or Tatooine standoff between Kylo Ren and Rey that they could have very well digitally removed or have not added Kylo Ren firing on Rey and then those blasts hitting the sand and kicking up. So I think that we do need to, or at least I do. I'm keeping an open mind that there are things in the shot that could change. And there's some other things to note, too, about this particular scene at the beginning of the trailer. Again, could be a confrontation, but why isn't Kylo firing? Could be a training sequence implying Reylo in some way, shape, or form. Could be another pilot. Some people have suggested that it could be another pilot and that we're being misled by showing Kylo Ren's hands at the controls. Okay. Let's see here. The battle that takes place potentially on that planet. Okay. We've heard that Jordan was used for 2 different locations. We know in the trailer there's some battles going on a desert planet. We saw multiple shots of that in the trailer, especially with Finn, C-3PO, and Poe on some type of skiff being chased by what looks to be some First Order troopers. Okay, let's see. How or why would that individual, though, if it's not Kylo in that ship and she is being trained, how would they know that she was going to, or how would they know to train her this way, would be my question, right? Getting back to Kylo, I'm going to open this up, and I know that people are going to freak out, but let me just hear me out for a second. What if for some reason Rey and Kylo are related? Okay? And I bring this up because I was talking to my dad yesterday, who's more of a casual fan. He's casual leaning hardcore, right? He kind of gets all the inside information from me, listens to my show mostly because it's his son who's doing it. Be that as it may, he does listen to my show. Loves Star Wars and watches the movies multiple times. So he's, just a little bit more than a casual fan. He was ready to make the leap of explaining that they're actually brother and sister, and that Rey is Han and Leia's daughter. I have a hard time accepting that, and I told him this, that they're really going to have to do some major heavy explaining if that indeed is the case, if they are brother and sister, especially based off of all the actions that took place in The Force Awakens, okay? But he was bringing that up, saying it could mirror the OT, in which case it certainly does go and make this training sequence even more possible, considering this would have to take place at some point in the movie where Kylo Ren has made a turn before the final battle, in which case they join forces again, and it certainly could, make that believable if for some reason there was a revelation that they were related all along. Rey still being a Skywalker. Okay, I don't believe all these theories, by the way. I'm just throwing them out there. I'm going to get into, again, more of my thoughts of where I do think this is going, but I just want to keep an open mind because it's fun, and we still have quite a ways to go till December, so we have plenty of time to break all this down, and certainly we'll be doing that more often as we get more information to go and chew on. But the possibility that she is related to Luke Skywalker in some way, shape, or form, and they're cousins. Okay, all right. So let's get into some additional thoughts in regards to this opening scene. Daisy Ridley did say during Celebration yesterday that when it came to Rey and Kylo/Ben's relationship, it gets explored in much greater depth. Okay, so my head is still in a Reylo situation. Based off of that leak that potentially Kylo Ren is dealing with his love of Rey, I think there is a big possibility that the turn for Kylo Ren takes place perhaps earlier in the film than later in the film, and the idea of balance comes into play because the dark and the light are going to be the ones that have to go and defeat the ultimate darkness of a Palpatine returning in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so that's where my head is still at. If I were a betting man, that opening sequence minus Rey being fired upon, and assuming Kylo Ren is piloting that awesome ship, leads me to believe that it's a training sequence of some way, shape, or form. I'll add one more thing, and this is one more thing, and that is, for some reason, and I don't know why, I have this sneaking suspicion that that's from the opening of the film. but I have no idea how we would get there. I still think the opening of this movie is going to be somewhat of a mirror of Return of the Jedi. I think that we're going to see a Kylo Ren landing on some ship to a garrison or two of First Order troopers there. And while he's being met, by some First Order officer, maybe Richard E. Grant, as we establish where we are within this universe, where we are in the galaxy right now after the opening crawl. I also think there's a possibility, if they actually go and introduce Palpatine in the opening crawl for some reason, that it could even involve that, unless they go the route of what they did in Return of the Jedi, where you get an opening scene in Return of the Jedi of Vader landing on the ship, talking about the Emperor. In this case, we get Kylo Ren, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, landing somewhere with garrisons of First Order troopers to be met by some high-ranking First Order official, and then we get later on in the film some physical manifestation of Palpatine in some way, shape, or form, now that we know how and why he happens to be back, arriving at that same location as we start moving towards the end, which could absolutely set up a very Return of the Jedi-esque finale of defeating Palpatine once and for all, and some choice being made there at the end. I think it's going to be a lot more complicated than that. If Palpatine is back, it's going to take more than one individual to go and bring him down, unless the work wasn't done yet, right? Unless the chosen one aspect in defeating the ultimate evil wasn't completed via the prophecy. Maybe there's something about the prophecy that we didn't know before. I got this thought in my head that there's a rumor. Let me add this to the whole thing. And this is I don't necessarily see this happening, but this was also being speculated. Somebody I think it was Jason Ward at MakingStarWars.net had made a comment that he had heard something about Luke being resurrected. I don't know how they do that, and I don't know the justification for doing that. I do think there are going to be more surprises in this film, and the fact that they revealed Palpatine early on, to me, says there's much bigger things that are going to be revealed at the end of this movie. Palpatine is not the biggest one, and his return isn't the biggest one. This idea popped into my head of, well, maybe not bringing back Luke, but what if for some reason they actually brought back Anakin, but it's a young Anakin after he's already turned? You saw the Force Ghost Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi being played by a young Hayden Christensen, because that's when he was still good. It wouldn't be the older version, which is why George Lucas replaced him at the end. That this was Anakin Skywalker on the light side who learned how to be a Force Ghost, and so when he transformed into a Force Ghost, being on the light side, being a Jedi, you get to see him in his old Jedi form, not him being the old man inside the suit. I kind of liked the idea, and it popped into my head this morning, of, well, okay, if they did bring somebody back, what if they brought back Anakin? And they brought back Anakin as Hayden Christensen, where we get to see him in his Jedi form finally go and take down the Emperor, which he was incapable of doing during Revenge of the Sith, when he goes back and he finishes what should have happened in Revenge of the Sith. He should have destroyed the Emperor when he had the chance, and he didn't, because of his love for Padme. I mean, look, there's a lot of different avenues and parallels here that we can get into in finishing what wasn't done in Revenge of the Sith that brought about, or what wasn't done in Return of the Jedi that ended up bringing about the return of Palpatine, in which case the prophecy in and of itself was never really completed. Or, as Yoda said in Revenge of the Sith, a prophecy they may have misread. Maybe there's another part of this whole thing that we're not aware of yet, that's going to be revealed, that's going to bring about and justify why Palpatine is still here, and the prophecy rings true. However, it wasn't fulfilled the way it was supposed to be fulfilled, and it will be in Episode 9. All right, moving on. Here's kind of a big one. In the trailer, and this goes to a comment that J.J. Abrams said. J.J. Abrams said, when in regards to Rey's parentage, there's more to the story. In the trailer, the ship that left Rey on Jakku is highlighted. Now, I, like many others, initially thought on a first couple of viewings that ship that's flying towards, it looks like at night, to be a snow planet in some city that's parked among a bunch of different peaks and a mountain, it looked like an A-Wing. And the fact that we saw an A-Wing spinning and crashing later on in the trailer kind of continue to put those two together. It's not an A-Wing. Pause the trailer. That ship is the same type of ship, which leads me to believe, unless, well, I'll get to that. It's the same type of ship that Rey sees in the Force Pack flying away after she was dumped off on Jakku with Unkar Plutt. Okay, so, first off, do I think it's the same ship? I absolutely think it's the same ship. Why do I think that? Because we haven't seen that model ship anywhere in the movies. Somebody pointed out, well, it could be the same type of ship. That's possible, but I have a hard time justifying how they would highlight it in the trailer to give us something to chew on. We've never seen another version of that ship apart from Rey seeing it in the Force Pack scene, and it just happens to show up, but it's a different ship that looks just like it. No, that's the same ship. Okay, so what does that mean? I don't know yet. Zach from Knights of Vader, the Knights of Vader podcast, thought the same thing that I did. That is Zori's ship, who is played by Kerry Russell, the bounty hunter, flying towards the rumored snow planet that she is allegedly supposed to be on, where the droid factory is. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it could mean a number of things. First off, I have no idea what it means. Speculating-wise, does Kerry Russell play into Rey's parentage in some way, shape, or form? I'm still of the opinion that Rey is a nobody. I think when it comes to the Star Wars franchise, that is a much better route to take, and certainly something that was established in The Last Jedi of the Force isn't everybody. It really is up to the individual to decide whether or not they are going to go and tap into that aspect of the Force or not, right? Okay. It would be, it's vanity to say that it's only one person. Okay. My thought right now is that Rey, in some way, shape, or form, is going to be somewhat of a mirror of Anakin Skywalker and a virgin birth. You really want to go and tie all these movies together? Then J.J. Abrams be brave enough to do what George Lucas did in The Phantom Menace and tell us that Rey was left on Jakku because whoever her mother was frightened because she conceived Rey without having any father. I really like this idea. I like this idea that perhaps Kerry Russell, for the sake of argument, could be Rey's mom. And that we come to find out that what Kylo Ren was not necessarily true. They were not dead, right? Maybe those were foster parents. And that perhaps Kerry Russell is actually Rey's mom, but she gave her up because it was a virgin birth and it freaked her out. Now, we also know via the comics, and I don't know if this will be explained in the movies, via the comics, it's heavily implied that Palpatine was the one who, through the Force, impregnated via the midichlorians Shmi Skywalker. So, there's also a big possibility here that part of Palpatine's contingency plan was to put another individual out there. And I did a theory on this a long, long time ago, about a year and a half ago now, with Samantha, our producer on the show, to this very point, that there's a very big possibility that, hey, maybe this was orchestrated all along. The prophecy was wrong. It was actually Rey who was going to be the one to bring down the Emperor in this case, right? Or defeat evil at the end of the day. She's actually the chosen one. The prophecy was wrong. Or this is what the Force does. The Force provides light side, Force-sensitive individuals to come and push down the dark side. Either way, I do not think that ship was placed in the trailer as a happenstance. No, they gave it to us to chew on. And again, the fact that J.J. Abrams said specifically that, again, there are so many options. I'm still opting for Rey nobody. But, right, again, potential for her to have been found to be special from birth, maybe by Zori, provides the answer. Maybe Zori's the one who provides the answer for Rey of what happened to her parents, or maybe Zori the bounty hunter actually is her parents. I do find it fascinating, though, man, that J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy are giving away, and Daisy, they're letting people know, hey, look, Palpatine's back. We're going to address Rey's parents, right? These are all things that they wouldn't touch before. Where there's more to the stories of Rey's parents. Daisy Ridley is saying it's explored in much greater depth. Kylo and Ben Solo and Daisy Ridley's relationship. And it's really incredible. Oh, and John Boyega even said that he, as a fan after The Last Jedi, had questions. Right? Moving through my list here, Kathleen Kennedy and JJ both confirmed Palpatine's return. It was planned for a while. Okay? That's what Kathleen, that Palpatine's return was planned for a while. Okay, so let me stop here for just a moment, and I'm going to really geek out. The Last Jedi was perfect for this. I can't wait. Honestly, I mean, I know this is like a given, right? It's silly for me to say it. I'm on like 167 of the show, and I've pointed this out often. But that being said, I can't wait to get episode 9. I can't wait to see the Rise of Skywalker. Not just because I want to know what the story is, but because I'm excited as a fan to have this complete saga. Bookend to bookend. I remember when they released the Blu-rays for, and I'm looking at it right behind me, right? The complete Star Wars saga on Blu-ray. Prior to the announcement that Lucasfilm was being bought by Disney. I remember when that came out, and I wasn't making nearly as much money at the time, and I had to wait to get the Blu-ray set, but I was so excited to have the complete saga. I'm a completist in that way. Less than I was when I was a kid, but I am. I am so excited for what J.J. Abrams is going to do in this movie, regardless of if it matches up to sort of what is, what's in my head of things that I'd like to see in regards to Reylo and final standoffs and all this speculation that we're putting out there. I'm just super excited to have these 9 films done. Like, if they were to put out these 9 movies and then they were done with them, I would be kind of okay with that, and they didn't do any more. Just because I love this saga so much. And I'm so thankful for what Rian Johnson did, because I think Rian Johnson put J.J. Abrams in this position, and the removal of Colin Trevorrow and JJ having to come in and through adversity put together this film and use footage of Leia and make it seem seamless. And already we've seen this in the shot in the trailer of Rey giving Princess Leia a hug, that seemed seamless in and of itself. And I already forgot that was probably, and it was, as a matter of fact, a used different angle of the embrace that Rey gave Leia at the end of The Force Awakens. They replaced the lightsaber in Carrie Fisher's hand with the Yavin award ceremony medal. It's either Luke or it's Han's, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. I'm just so excited to see what this final story does. And like I said on yesterday's show, the fact that Kathleen Kennedy and JJ are so excited, and JJ went so far as to say that he feels like they actually went and did it, that they pulled it off. I mean, it's an understatement. I mean, not an understatement, and I'm choosing my words poorly today because I'm just so excited. But look, it's tough for me to say that I'm most excited for this movie because I'm always most excited for the next Star Wars movie, but holy cow, I'm on a different level with this movie now and the potential. All right, let's get back to some of my notes here. All right, J.J. Abrams confirms that he consulted with George Lucas when crafting the story for Episode 9 and reintroducing Emperor Palpatine, Darth Sidious. Fascinating, right? And awesome that J.J. Abrams went and said that, because it's going to, make a lot of people happy. Now, we know in the past that George Lucas actually, with some of the EU stuff, didn't allow some things, and he did allow other things. He did allow for the cloning of Palpatine, to have him return in some of the ancillary, now legend books. So we've done this before. This is not the first time within Star Wars mythology, even though it is now legends, that they've brought back Palpatine. But I love this idea that J.J. Abrams went to the creator and said, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. What do you think about it? What I really would like to know is when did that happen? Did that happen at the beginning of this process? And was this really, like Kathleen Kennedy said, this was kind of planned for a while now? Does that mean it was planned from the start? Or does that mean that this was something that was planned sort of midway through, where maybe they started talking about it once J.J. Abrams took over? I would be really interested to know when that conversation took place in regards to bringing back Palpatine. Okay. That being said, I give you this. There were some early drafts of Return of the Jedi that had Yoda and Obi-Wan basically returning from the Netherworld and helping Luke confront the Emperor and Vader. I could honestly see something very similar, right, happening. But maybe you get Luke and Anakin basically returning to finally defeat Palpatine for good. Kylo turns to the light And there's 3 generations of Skywalkers all bringing balance together. This idea that the rise of Skywalker, right, could mean that it's going to take these 3 different generations of Skywalker to defeat Palpatine in whatever form that he's in. Because I don't think it's as cut and dry that Palpatine is back in physical form. I think it's possible. I'm not going to say it's a mistake if it wasn't, but they're going to have to really have pulled it off if that's the case, right? But I love this idea, and I don't know how Rey fits into it, but I love this idea that the rise of Skywalker is larger than one specific person. That we come to find out that the name Skywalker means something else within the Star Wars galaxy. And that the rise of Skywalker is not just the rise of Skywalker in Ben Solo, but it's the rise of Skywalker in these generations of Skywalker, right? And again, you go back to Luke's initial thoughts at the start of the trailer. We've passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now. Okay, were there Skywalkers prior to the Phantom Menace that we're not aware of right now? Did Palpatine indeed influence the midichlorians to create life, making Anakin Skywalker, and he did that to Shmi because she was a Skywalker because she had some significance. And this goes back to several podcasts ago where somebody on Reddit or somewhere in a thread had brought this up, and I thought it was on Reddit actually, it was Reddit speculation. Somebody had brought up this big question mark of Shmi Skywalker. Why her? There's a good possibility that's where this whole thing is heading, right? Still got to answer the question of how we're bringing Palpatine back. However, we go back to the beginning in the Phantom Menace, right? We will watch your future with great interest. How does Shmi Skywalker play into this? Where did she get the Skywalker name from? What's her lineage? Again, just one of the many reasons why I'm so excited over this. All right, continuing. End of the trailer, Death Star 2. On one of the moons of Endor, okay? I'm convinced that's what's going on here. Some people have speculated it's not. It was Death Star 1 and it's Yavin. No, I'm not buying it. It's Endor. And I want to say this, too, for those that are saying, and a lot of people have mentioned it, and I think it's relevant, for those that are talking about how, when it comes to Endor looking different in the ocean, one, we know there's oceans on Endor. And I tweeted this out earlier. Look, regardless of how hard they try, even if they went back to the forest of Endor in The Rise of Skywalker, okay, it's still going to look different than it did in Return of the Jedi. It's going to look different because the cameras are different, the shots are different, the looks of the film are different. So it makes sense that you see Endor in the trailer. It doesn't look like Endor because you're looking at an ocean and it doesn't really have the vibe. It's going to be like that just because it's a different decade when these movies are made. Okay, so Death Star 2, and you've got Rey, Finn, Poe, Chewbacca, C-3PO. Where the heck is R2? I'm assuming everyone's asking that question, where's R2-D2? I'm assuming he's with Leia this whole time. That's my assumption. Okay, BB-8, D-O, they're all standing there on this hillside, looking out on this ocean with these massive, epic waves, and you see the destroyed dish and a big portion of the Death Star 2, and then we get Palpatine cackling at the end. All right. If you go into the Force Awakens art book, there's 2 different photos. One shows Rey swimming through the trench, and the caption for the photo says that at the time she found a map in the trench that fell into the ocean on Endor. Okay? And the map led to Luke Skywalker and the Jedi. Okay. The second is a piece of art of Rey in the Emperor's throne room. Rick Carter says it didn't make sense that the image, that the shot didn't make sense. The piece of art didn't make sense, but the imagery was cool. So it clearly looks like J.J. Abrams is pulling for some reason, or is pulling, not for some reason, but is pulling from the Force Awakens book, that art book, and Rey is returning. If you look at the shot in the trailer, she's holding something in her arm, which I assume is some type of breathing apparatus. Okay, so during the panel, there was a shot of that same group of people, so BB-8, Dio, Chewbacca, Finn, C-3PO, Rey, and Poe. And they're on what looks to be a forest planet. And J.J. Abrams said it was at the start of the film. This was the beginning of the movie. Okay, so pushing back against my idea of the opening shot of the trailer being the start of the movie, unless that was some type of vision that Rey was having, right? If the movie starts off with that space scene and then we go down to a planet and then that's Rey there, right? Okay, or she's training with somebody that isn't Kylo. Be that as it may. During the panel, it shows a shot of them. They're standing outside the Millennium Falcon and they're talking. J.J. Abrams says they're going on this adventure, and we know there's some type of MacGuffin. And Jason at MakingStarWars.net said the MacGuffin involves the Death Star 2 somehow and evolves throughout the movie. Okay. I think the shot in the trailer is something that takes place early in the film, and their first visit is on Endor, and they're immediately looking for something inside of Palpatine's chambers, but I don't know what that would be. But I think the movie's opening up on Endor. Maybe after we get the pan down and then we see the First Order. But when we first see our friends again, they're all together. It'll probably be in the crawl. Something to the effect of Rey, maybe reading the sacred Jedi text, realizes that there's something that she needs to go and find with the pending fight. And so they return to Endor to try to go find it within Palpatine's chambers. But I have no idea what that would be. Heck, that may even be the catalyst of what ends up bringing Palpatine back in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. But I am thinking that when they make these trailers, right, and Endgame is the good example. When they make these trailers, they're only showing you certain parts of the movie, and usually it's the beginning part of the film. The shot of Kylo Ren taking down what looks to be that Knight of Ren, I'm assuming, has got to be later in the movie or in the middle of the movie at some point in time, or maybe that's early on. I don't know. Be that as it may, I do think that shot that you see in the trailer of the Death Star and her going down into the water into Palpatine's chambers for some reason is happening really, really early in the movie. Also, there's been a rumor going around that there's some type of zero-G lightsaber fight. Jason Ward on MakingStarWars.net said that zero-G fight and her doing wire work could have been because of the underwater shots necessary for her to go down deep into the remains of the Death Star 2 to retrieve whatever it is she's looking for, and that might be why she was wired up. I would also like to mention, too, that it might be why she was wired up in that opening shot with her, vaulting over the First Order TIE interceptor. All right, moving on to my notes. The reforging of Kylo's helmet. This one I find really interesting. We were told a long time ago that Rey's legacy lightsaber was going to be rebuilt, and we know that it is, and has a piece there in the middle. She put it back together. Probably be explained in the crawl. However, they showed us Kylo Ren's helmet being reforged in the trailer, and not by him. It shows it being put back together by somebody with furry hands. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, it means that at some point in the start of the movie, he doesn't have his helmet yet. So they could be very early on in the movie that he's reforging his helmet. It's possible. Could open up on that because he puts it on early. Okay. All the photos that we saw of Kylo Ren, though, however, in the cockpit of the ship, he doesn't have it on. And in that still frame during the panel, he doesn't have it on. Okay. So, here's my theory. I don't think he reforges the helmet until later in the movie. And I don't think he puts the helmet back on until the final confrontation, and maybe even after he's gone to the light. I think there's a big possibility that the final standoff and Kylo Ren being on the light side, right? Maybe he's the one that ends up having to take down the ultimate evil, perhaps. Okay, say for the sake of argument. What if he reforges the helmet for that final confrontation? I'm just throwing it out there. I thought it was very interesting that they showed the helmet being reforged, but they didn't show the lightsaber being reforged. And again, all the shots that we've seen of Kylo Ren, he didn't have the helmet on. And even in the IgerCon shot, from those that saw it, of him looking at the Vader helmet in the box, he wasn't wearing it. So I'm wondering if for some reason he puts it back together for a different reason altogether. Not because he's Supreme Leader Kylo Ren and he's trying to scare the heck out of everybody, but because he's going into battle and wants to be wearing his helmet. Okay? Just a thought. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but they also switched the lightsaber in Carrie Fisher's hand to the one of the medals given to Luke and Han in A New Hope. Could be nothing more than Leia going through Han's things or Luke's things. It also could be part of us and the journey that we're going on in this film, where we are revisiting some of these old places and we are being taken back to other moments in the film and bringing this whole thing together. I am just, again, super excited at what's come before and what it will be leading into. And I am going to use this as another defense of The Last Jedi. And I know people are out there making comments, and hopefully the fandom now can move on from it now that we've got a new trailer and a new movie. And those that hate The Last Jedi, that's fine, to each their own. Have had a lot of people emailing me in regards to that, by the way, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that coming up. However, I do love what Rian Johnson did because of where these characters can all go now. I'm so looking forward to watching The Last Jedi tonight. I really am. Because I just love the fact that The Last Jedi, in my opinion, based solely off of what we've seen in this 2-minute trailer, really will serve as this trilogy's Empire Strikes Back. And what Rian Johnson did, and maybe I'm giving the man too much credit, but he said he wanted to put all these characters through experiences, difficult experiences to grow their arc. He wanted it to start right after The Force Awakens, and it is unique and different, and I love it for that, because Star Wars is unique and different. So I love the fact they took a risk by having this movie follow right after The Force Awakens. I think that was a brilliant masterstroke. I really, really do. But that being said, I love the fact that Rian Johnson put these characters through their paces, and they've all are now in this fantastic place where now J.J. Abrams can do what he does best. And this is what I really love. I love the fact that J.J. Abrams has an opportunity to essentially do a sequel to The Force Awakens. Even though we got rid of Snoke and there were some changes, he essentially gets to do that, which would be in his best benefit. But he also has the added benefit of a new character with Kelly Marie Tran and Rose, and all the characters having gone through some type of growth. Because now when we get into the Rise of Skywalker, we've got a bit of a time jump. We know that Rey is already capable of doing some incredible things, and we know she's even capable of doing more based off of what we saw in the trailer itself. All right, one last quick point. Going to move off of the trailer. Again, there'll be plenty of time to dissect this, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from you and getting your thoughts. We already have a handful of them from listener feedback. We're going to dive into that in just a moment. And when we're done with listener feedback, I'll do the drawing for the autographed copy of my novel, EMBARK. But Kathleen Kennedy did say that they are planning the next 10 years of Star Wars films. And that's fantastic news, right? It's great. Somebody said it all along, or somebody said it a long time ago that, they'll be making Star Wars movies long after we're all, guys like me are dead and gone. And I'm totally, completely fine with that. And I'm excited to know that they're going to be obviously making more movies. We know they're going to. We know we have the Game of Thrones guys and the Rian Johnson trilogy at some point in time. We have the Mandalorian coming out, and they may be taking a hiatus, so we may have to skip a year. That's great, and I'm super excited for it. I'm way more excited for The Rise of Skywalker, man. I really am. I love these movies, and I revisit these movies so often, and they go back, and they bring me so much joy. To me and my family, such connective tissue. I love talking about this with stuff. I was texting my friends, and I made this joke, but it actually is true, and I'll actually read it to you. We were discussing the trailer. So there's a meme going around, and the meme is a guy and a girl. They're under the sheets, and they're in bed, right? And they're facing two different directions. Okay, they're clothed. And it says, her, I bet he's thinking about other girls. Him, he's thinking, where the hell has Palpatine been this whole time? So I had texted this to my friends, and they started asking me. These are more casual. They're Star Wars fans, but they're casual fans. This is Drew, the guy that I do the show with, and Samantha, our producer. What was your mind like blown when you heard Palpatine in the trailer? Were you expecting that at all? And I didn't. I know that Christian Harloff was saying that Palpatine was going to be back all along, but I didn't give any credibility to it. But this is what I ended up writing. I wrote, I love life. Way to go living, good job. Life's the best. Life doesn't get enough credit, man. Life is great. It really is. You know, I talk politics for a living Monday through Friday, and I love my job and I love what I do. I don't feel like I work, and I'm so blessed to have the career that I have. But man, I have so much fun coming here and talking about Star Wars for now 55 minutes based off a 2-minute trailer. It's fantastic, right? It doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any better than that, right? So whatever they do for the next 10 years, I'm fine. We've got 9 Star Wars movies and 2 spinoff films and countless other stuff. Oh, life is great.
I need someone to show me my place in all this.
All right, listener feedback. We start off with Dylan, who just now emailed me. Holy cow, never have I been so blown away by a trailer. The reveal of the title had me jumping off the couch. And Ian McDiarmid's appearance on stage at the panel, along with the laugh, of course, had me pacing the room. I'm still not even sure what else to say right now. I'm shocked at how many whiners are still out there complaining. The trailer was incredible, and it's going to be a long 7 months for a reason, Dylan. P.S. The use of slow motion with Rey and Kylo was super cool. It's something we usually don't see in Star Wars, but it works well. It is, Dylan. However, we do see it in Star Wars. Rian Johnson did it. I love the fact that this trailer looks like a bit of The Last Jedi. I really, really do. Man, I'm telling you, it was a masterstroke having Rian Johnson do The Last Jedi. For all these reasons. Because now you're bringing in the guy like J.J. Abrams, who is so good at making movies, and somebody else makes a comment about this, and I won't jump ahead of what they say. But, you know, J.J. Abrams just makes spectacular movies, and Rian Johnson makes Rian Johnson great, masterful movies. I just still think it was such a masterstroke that they ended up doing what they did with The Last Jedi to bring about the Rise of Skywalker. Oh, all right. Agnes writes this. Thank you for the podcast. That was cool. I did not know we could actually watch the panels online. They go on to say the teaser was all about Ben-demption. Luke speaks about the 1,000 generations being in you, and in my opinion, he does not talk to Rey. He either talks to Ben or to Ben and Rey. Because English is an ambiguous language, and you can be plural or singular, right? And then every generation needs a legend, and we see the same landscape where we saw Anakin on his module, they write in here, Luke on his speeder, and now Ben in his TIE fighter. I mean, come on! It's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. Rey is not that legend. It is either Ben alone or she and Ben. And then they go on to say, I always listen to your podcast and follow up with the Stephen Colbert Show. I find you both great for different reasons, smiley face. One more proof that there is a place for Star Wars in everybody. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And Stephen Colbert, for what it's worth, did a good job yesterday. I still think the panel would have been better if they'd had somebody who was a little bit more adept when it comes to kind of pulling information, but, you know, be that as it may, it was fine for what it was. We were all just waiting for the trailer anyways. All right, I have a comment here. We'll leave it anonymous because they asked me to. Let's go. Okay, hold on one second. All right, so this is going to be a little bit wonky, but our anonymous emailer says, I know you'll find this interview incredibly interesting, and I'll play you the audio here in just a moment. Kathleen Kennedy states that Palpatine's return in 9 was planned a while ago. While not concrete by any means, it did seem that they had some kind of general overall concept of the direction, if she is to believed. Thanks. P.S. My gosh, the trailer was amazing. I'm a man in my 20s, and I was brought to tears. I was too, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to pull the, this is a little wonky, but let me play you the audio here. Kathleen Kennedy explaining why it's called The Rise of Skywalker.
I think The Rise of Skywalker, it doesn't answer anything. It's provocative. And I think that's what could mean a lot of different things. And I think that's what was important to us. We didn't want to have a title that felt like it was telling you the story. At the same time, it needs to feel emotional, which is a challenge to try to figure out what that might be. And I think the word Skywalker, it captures all four.
All right, and then we'll get to the second clip here.
Big shocker in this trailer, of course, the reappearance of Palpatine. What can you tell us about this? How long was this in the cards? Was this sort of in the blueprint from Episode 7?
This has been in the blueprint for a long time. Yeah, we had not landed on exactly how we might do that, But yes, it's
Always to be in episode 9.
yeah.
Working with Ian was among the most wonderful experiences I've ever had. He is like a breathtakingly good actor, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for audience.
J.J. Abrams directing Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine? Come on now. Seriously. How awesome is that going to be? Oh my gosh. Oh, all right. Let's get to more comments here. Blanca Salazar says, I almost literally cried how much this trailer got me. Hashtag Raylo, hashtag Ben Demption. All right, friend of the show, Black-Eyed Lily writes this. It was amazing. I can hardly believe that anyone would be disappointed. And Ben Demption is coming. I no doubt about it. Remember, according to Last Shot, Han believes Ben was conceived on Endor, and Han thinks Ben's serious, soulful eyes look like he's been waiting around 1,000 years for just the right time to be born. Interesting, as always. Thank you for the comment. ZBH writes this. Really curious about the greatest threat is. I think we know now. We've known since The Last Jedi, basically, that Kylo/Ben won't be the final villain of the trilogy. But with the Palpatine tease, it really made me curious as to who the final battle is against. And I'm wondering if maybe the final villain isn't any one person, but perhaps the dark side itself. So I'm thinking there's a lot of speculation and rumors out there and leaks that the Knights of Ren go into the Beyond and they come back with some threat. Okay. The way that J.J. Abrams talks about Ian McDiarmid really lends itself to Palpatine being in physical form. So let's just, for the sake of argument, say he's in physical form and he survived the Death Star somehow. Okay. What if the Knights of Ren go into the Beyond the Unknown regions and they discover Palpatine has been pulling the strings all along? And when Palpatine returns, right, he ends up basically taking over the First Order, which causes conflict with Kylo Ren. Those red troopers in the promo poster that we talked about that look like clone troopers, I'm convinced they're Palpatines. I think Palpatine potentially is in physical form. He's been out there for a while, and he's got his own red army. And I can't help but wonder in the shot with Kylo Ren without the helmet taking down what looks to be a Knight of Ren with the Stormtrooper in the background. Somebody had pointed out on the promo poster, they thought it was odd that they had a handful of First Order white troopers that were in the poster, and then underneath you had the huge garrison of those red troopers. They were also on set called Sith troopers, which would make sense if they were Palpatines and they were clones, because that's what Palpatine did the last time. Fantastic. All right. Thank you, ZBH. I appreciate it. Kristen Spotted says this. The thing I'm wondering is if Hux is how Palpatine comes back. You notice there hasn't been anything on him so far. Maybe in trying to bring Kylo down, he somehow brings Palpatine back, or if he was working with him all along. Yeah, there's been no talk of Hux, and I know that he's supposed to allegedly get captured or something like that, but they didn't even have Domhnall Gleeson at the panel either. But then again, there's a lot of staff that wasn't at the panel. All right. Baffled and Deranged writes this. I slurred my words there. I haven't been drinking, I promise. I agree. I also believe... Hi, John, I agree. I also believe that Rey and Kylo are training. Did anyone notice that Kylo's gloves looked gray and not black? I, too, will be watching this trailer over and over again. I'm truly looking forward to seeing Episode 9 this coming December. SJs writes this. The thing that J.J. Abrams is so good at is directing-wise is threefold. He always gets the absolute best out of his actors. His pacing is second to none in all of his movies. He balances the dark and the light elements like it's child's play. Totally agree. Sky writes this, Sky McKenna. I'm on cloud 9 right now. I'm still reeling. When Rey does that flip, she's going to land on Ben's silencer and ride it like Vader. Mind blown. And when Luke says 1,000 generations live inside you now, oh my gosh, Raylo. They're going to have a baby. They're going to have a baby. Thank you for the comment, Sky. Kenny Ritchie writes this. I'm with you, John. I freaking love the teaser. I'm more of a Rian Johnson kind of guy than J.J. Abrams, but damn, this looks good. Agreed. Silver Maiden 42240 says, I just thought of something. What if the reason they're standing there looking at the Death Star is because they're going to track down Kyber for a new saber? What else would be there? That's got to be it. I'm so freaking pumped. Yeah, I think that lightsaber that she has was forged already. And I believe that I was thinking about that too. Like, what if they were trying to retrieve Luke's lightsaber? But I'm pretty sure that Luke had his. I know he throws it aside, but I'm pretty sure that Luke has his lightsaber strapped to his side during the funeral pyre on Endor at the end of Return of the Jedi. But maybe somebody can email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com, or leave a comment on YouTube and let me know for sure. Rocker Chick 27 says, me and my bestie thought it was training too, in regards to the first opening shot. Friend of the show, Tim Casey, says this. First off, thank you for all you do. I loved listening to you on the radio for years. I podcast every show and every day in the dynamic of you, Drew, and Sam. Talking about my weekly radio show. You've been a huge influence on my fandom over the years. Oh, that's awesome. I've always been a huge Star Wars fan, but really dug into your pre-Episode 8 podcast and have loved listening to my Nerd World. I recently joined the Army National Guard at 32, and I'm going to basic training for 17 plus weeks starting this coming Wednesday. I won't be able to listen for a bit. Thank you for what you do, though, man, and thanks for going and doing that. On to the trailer. Holy crap, I literally screamed at my phone through the whole trailer and then immediately checked your podcast out. I love the idea of clones and Palpatine coming back. I agree that Kylo and Rey will be allies and have to attack the Emperor like Luke and his father did. Here's something you may not know. Both clones of Luke and Palpatine are in the expanded universe of books and comics, both in the Timothy Zahn books and in some more obscure comments. I feel like tying up all the movies and the canon Abrams is taking from concepts in the expanded universe. I'm more excited than I can say. Thanks for all you do. Sincerely, Tim Casey. You know, I can't help but wonder if the twist is going to be like, was it a clone of Palpatine in Return of the Jedi? I'm dying to know how they're going to go and pull this off, and I fully trust them to do a good job. All right, Pandora Young writes this, and I'm already laughing. You are the animate emanating center of all joy in this universe, Mr. Justice. Thank you, Pandora. That's amazing. I'm going to put that on my resume. I am the animate emanating center of all joy. Life's amazing. Life is rad. I'm going to say that. That trailer was rad. Holy cow. All right, sorry. Alejandra Mishi writes this. I wish there was someone else doing the panel, in quotes, doing that thing with my fingers. OMG, same. Agreed with my reaction. Alex says, I still have chills from the trailer. Looks fan-flipping-tastic. Totally agree. Friend of the show, Jennifer Oliver, writes, we probably all ugly cried at the same time. Yeah, I agreed. I agree. I think we all ugly cried as well. I know that I did. Athea Gaia says, awesome podcast as always. Sign me up for the drawing of the book. I'll be doing that shortly. I just bought the ebook and audiobook, and I'm looking forward to starting to listen to it on my bus ride to Chicago for Celebration. Let's see. What else we got here? I'm sorry, I'm running through a few of these. Brian Miller writes this. The Phantom of the Opera loved Christine, and she even felt an emotional connection to him, but Christine fell in love in a romantic way with Raoul. I can totally see the trilogy ending with Kylo and Rey in the exact same position, with Rey falling in love with Finn. The mirrors between these three characters in each of their stories is fairly strong, so things follow the Phantom pattern. I'm going to stop there. Just based off of what we've seen in the trailer and the conversation, I think it's pretty clear that this movie is going to see Finn and Poe teaming up as buddies. Rose is still going to be there with the Resistance in some way, shape, or form, and this is going to be Kylo and Rey. That's where this whole thing is heading. Will Newsom writes this. If JJ goes the Reylo route, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed. There's so much more they could do within closing of the sequels/story to make Episode 9 absolutely epic. Yeah, that's true. At the same time, I think that it would be absolutely epic, in my opinion, if they went the Reylo route. Let's see. Beardshire writes this. This was a fun one. I find it odd that you don't seem to have any critique of anything throughout this trilogy so far. You're just on board with everything? ? Not saying to be a downer, but not a single counterpoint? Is the toxic fan syndrome so bad these days that you can't question anything? I commented back and forth, and if you want to go on YouTube and check it out, this is for the bonus episode where Beardshire had made this comment. And I'll say what I said to him. Is the toxic fandom so bad these days that you can't just be positive? I didn't make these movies. I'm not the content creators. They make these movies and present them to me, and I love them for what they are. That's just how I am. I'm just a positive guy that way. If you want to see my full comments, you can go on to Twitter and go and check them out. Let's see if we have anything left here. Enfys Nest writes this. Anakin's love for Padme, unfortunately, was what sent the Force and the galaxy spiraling into imbalance and darkness, and that's why I believe Ben's love for Rey will bring balance back to the Force and the galaxy, because selfish love was the catalyst in the prequels, so selfless love needs to be the answer in the sequels. Very good point. I dig that. Let's see. Let's do... Sorry, here. Here we go. We'll do Obsidian. I have a few, you have to forgive me. I've got a few emails in here that were specifically for the drawing of my novel, so I was having to skip through to find the ones where the comments were, so my apologies for that. Obsidian writes this. I really dislike The Last Jedi. Everything from the characterizations to the writing to the plot. There are very little redeeming qualities to that film, as it brought the trilogy to a halt. If anything, I hope they retcon most of what was done in The Last Jedi. That would be a great surprise. I think I can be safe saying that I completely disagree with his comments, but you know what? To each their own. Thank you for commenting. I appreciate the fact that you listen to the show, even though we absolutely disagree, because I think The Last Jedi is a masterpiece. Alex writes this. I love what Ryan did with The Last Jedi. I'll counter it with a positive one. Did I think the movie was perfect? No, but it changed the way the trilogy was going in such a way that I really like. But I feel like Ryan will get just more hate. It's the sad truth. I think the haters will just get stronger when this trilogy comes out, and I hope that his fans will stand by him, and he will see it. I wish him the best of luck. He didn't deserve to get all the hatred that he got. Yeah, I absolutely... go and I absolutely agree with that. That being said, I also think that part of the toxic fandom is the minority. I know people will push back on that. Again, that's just my own personal feelings on the matter. I think that it is the minority of individuals, and I think Disney, Lucasfilm, Rian Johnson, J.J. Abrams, I think they all know that. And even J.J. Abrams talked positively about The Last Jedi. So I can't wait to watch it again tonight. I'm so excited. All right, so that wraps up the show for this week. There will be another show tomorrow. I don't know how long it'll be, but once we get the information and the trailer for the Mandalorian, one more show for Celebration tomorrow, and I'm sure there'll be some more thoughts on the trailer, some more of your listener feedback as well. Thank you so much for checking the show out. You can always email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook and Twitter. 2 different accounts on Twitter. My personal account, Jon, Jon Justice, and also my Nerd World account, which is at the My Nerd World. You can find me at both of those. Leave me a comment. Follow me on Twitter. I'd really appreciate it. As the Girls of Saber podcast says, smash the subscribe button on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Before we close the show out, this show out, I do have to do the drawing for the giveaway for an autographed copy of my science fiction novel, EMBARK. As always, thank you so much to everybody who has picked it up. For those that haven't, this is an all-original story written by me, set in the not-so-distant future where flight culture, space culture, has replaced car culture, right? 2 of the planet's biggest corporations now supply the technology and the fuel for all of humanity to go and fly. An industrial apocalypse occurs, and a corporate madman seeks to go and take advantage of the world on the brink of collapse. The story focuses on our hero, Taft Guardia, and the girl that he loves, Keith Amaro. She and her friends are she and their friends are unwittingly thrust into the future of mankind as they flee for the stars. It is the first of a trilogy. The follow-up book, EMBARK Treasure in Darkness, is finished. I'm currently in the process of editing it and hope to have it out in June. So if you haven't picked the book up yet, you can go to Amazon.com right now, search for Jon, Jon Justice, and EMBARK, and you can pick up the audiobook narrated by me, the paperback, and also the ebook. Ebook is $2.99 currently, paperback is $13.99, and the audiobook is a number of different prices, varying from $24 to $7.50, depending on if you've purchased any other versions. I do have an autographed copy to give away. I have my glow-in-the-dark Star Wars Force Awakens New Balance hat, one of my favorite hats. I have put all of the names for those of you who have who emailed and wanted to be a part of it. So you can see I'm shaking it up. I'm going to draw one name, and the winner is Elizabeth Saunders. Congratulations, Elizabeth Sanders. You have won an autographed copy of my science fiction novel, EMBARK. I will drop you an email and ask you for your information. Congratulations. And thank you for everybody who participated in the drawing and for listening to the show every single week. I do plan on giving away some other copies, certainly copies when the new book is released. But again, if you haven't picked it up yet, I hope that you'll go to Amazon.com and search for EMBARK, Jon Justice, and win a copy for yourself, and purchase a copy for yourself. And again, congratulations to Elizabeth Sanders for winning an autographed copy. I'm looking forward to signing that and getting that in the mail for you. And thank you so much for listening. All right, that's it. I'll be back tomorrow for another episode. But again, drop me a comment on YouTube within the next 24 hours, and I can try to include them on the last podcast for this celebration weekend. Until then, here once again is Obi-Wan Kenobi to take us out. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.
The Force will be with you, always.
My nerd world.